The sun hangs high over the sprawling military arena, its sharp light casting long shadows across rows upon rows of soldiers standing at rigid attention. The air buzzes with the low murmur of anticipation, a restless energy that hums through the crowd like electricity. Everywhere you look, faces turn toward the center stage, eyes bright with curiosity, with skepticism, and with something unspoken, doubt. Among the thousands gathered, she stands, Lila, 25 years old, clad in her crisp, immaculately pressed uniform. The weight of the fabric pressing against her skin, like the weight of every expectation and judgment she's ever faced. Her boots are polished to a mirror shine, reflecting the faces of the crowd that watches her with mixed expressions, some impressed, many doubtful. She can feel the tension coiled inside her chest, a strange mix of pride and anxiety that won't settle. Today, she is to receive an award, one that honors bravery, sacrifice, and service. But, as she glances toward the front row, where her family sits, a cold knot twists in her stomach. Their expressions are distant, eyes flickering with something that feels close to mockery. Not outright scorn, but a quiet dismissal that stings sharper than any open insult. Lila's mother stifles a smirk, her father shifts uncomfortably in his seat, and her younger brother exchanges a glance with a friend seated nearby, their lips curling just enough to betray a smirk. The same smirk she's faced before, whispers behind closed doors, sideways glances in the mess hall, assumptions that she's not cut out for this. That this honor is a mistake, a token gesture to appease someone who didn't belong. Around her, the audience is a sea of faces, some bright with genuine admiration, many clouded with doubt. Soldiers in uniform, veterans, civilians, all watching her as if waiting for her to falter. She senses their skepticism like a cold wind, a reminder of every challenge she's had to overcome to stand here today. And then, as the ceremony begins, the murmur of the crowd shifts. A group near the back chuckles low at first, then louder, a ripple of laughter that spreads like wildfire. It's faint at first, almost drowned out by the formal music and the commanding voice of the officer leading the ceremony. But it grows, filling the vast arena with a sharp, mocking edge. Lila can hear it clear as day, the laughter aimed at her. It rings in her ears, sharp and cruel. She feels the heat rise in her cheeks, but she stands firm, shoulders squared, chin lifted. This moment is hers, no matter what they think. Her heart pounds in time with the drum beats echoing across the field. The commanding officer's voice cuts through the noise. Today, we honor those whose courage has changed the course of our mission. Those who faced danger head-on, when others hesitated. The laughter dims, but the tension remains thick. Lila's hands clench at her sides, fingers trembling just enough to remind her she's alive, she's human. She looks out again at the crowd, searching for something. Maybe a sign of support, or perhaps just a flicker of understanding. Her eyes lock briefly with her family's once more. Her mother's smirk fades, replaced with a flicker of surprise. Her father's mouth tightens, and her brother's gaze drops quickly, unable to meet hers. It's as if they're realizing, in this moment, that she is more than the doubts they've cast upon her. The commanding officer steps forward, holding a medal gleaming in the sunlight. He clears his throat, the room falling silent once again. The award we present today is not given lightly. It is reserved for those whose actions have not only served their country but have saved lives in the most dire of circumstances. Lila's breath catches. Her mind flashes back to the mission, the darkness, the chaos, the moment when everything seemed lost, the decisions she made, the risks she took, and the lives that depended on her. A voice rises from the gathering, steady and authoritative, cutting through the lingering whispers. We were saved because of her. The crowd falls into stunned silence, the words hanging heavy in the air. It's the Admiral speaking, an unexpected champion, a voice from the very top of the command chain. His gaze fixes squarely on Lila, unwavering and filled with respect. We were saved because of her. The phrase echoes again, carried on the wind, and the atmosphere shifts. The laughter dies completely. Skepticism gives way to a growing wave of admiration and realization. The same crowd that doubted now looks on with newfound respect. Lila stands taller, her chest swelling with a pride that no one can take away. She hears the applause starting, slow at first, then building into a powerful roar. It's the sound of barriers breaking, of judgments crumbling, of a truth finally being acknowledged. The distance between her and her family seems to shrink under the weight of the Admiral's words. Faces that once mocked now soften. Eyes that once doubted now shine with the recognition of her sacrifice. This is more than an award, it's a vindication. A moment where every whisper, every sneer, every moment of being underestimated is met with undeniable proof. We were saved because of her. Those words will stay with her forever. Because today, in this grand arena filled with thousands, the girl they mocked stood as a hero. The girl they doubted became the reason they lived. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, if you've ever felt underestimated or overlooked, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The award presentation. The room fell silent as the Admiral stepped onto the stage. His presence was commanding, every eye drawn to him like a magnet. The sharp crease of his uniform, the steady confidence in his stride, it was clear he was a man used to being heard. The murmurs quieted, replaced by the low hum of anticipation. He opened the envelope in his hand, scanning the names with practiced ease. One by one, he called out the recipients of the awards, his voice steady and clear. Each name brought a ripple of applause, some warm, some polite. Lila's heart pounded in her chest like a drum, the rhythm quickening with each passing moment. She sat rigid, her military uniform crisp, her eyes fixed on the Admiral. Her family sat behind her, a mix of folded arms and sideways glances betraying their silent judgment. The names continued. Lieutenant Harris, Sergeant Mallory, Corporal Jameson. Lila's breath hitched. She could feel the weight of the room's gaze, the invisible line drawn between her and the others. A few of her family members whispered under their breaths, their voices low but sharp, slicing through her resolve like cold wind. Then, finally, it came. Lieutenant Lila Morgan. Her name echoed through the hall, time stretched, the seconds thick and heavy. She rose, her movements deliberate and steady, despite the storm inside her. Each step toward the stage was a victory over the doubts she had carried for years. The eyes of her family followed her, not with pride, but with something colder. Disapproval, disbelief, maybe even shame. When she reached the Admiral, he looked at her with a solemn respect that made her chest swell. He held out the award, a medal gleaming under the stage lights, and spoke, his voice rising with conviction. This award is given not just for courage, but for unwavering bravery under fire. Lieutenant Morgan's actions during the operation were nothing short of heroic. When her unit was ambushed, it was her quick thinking and fearless leadership that turned the tide. The murmurs from the crowd shifted, a wave of acknowledgement washing over the room. But in the corner of her vision, Lila caught the sharp edge of her mother's gaze, cold, disapproving, as if her achievements were a burden rather than a triumph. The whispers from her family persisted, faint but persistent, like a distant storm threatening to drown out the moment. The Admiral's voice grew stronger, louder, filling the space with undeniable truth. Because of her, we were saved. Lives were spared. History was changed. This is not just an award. It is a testament to the power of one woman's courage against impossible odds. Applause erupted, a tide of sound that swelled and pulled at the walls of the hall. People stood, clapping, some with tears in their eyes, others with nods of deep respect. The weight of the moment shifted palpably, the atmosphere charged with newfound admiration. Yet through it all, her family remained silent, no clapping, no smiles. Just the cold, steady gaze of those who could not, or would not, see the hero standing before them. Lila held the medal tightly, her fingers trembling not from fear, but from the fire of resolve burning brighter than ever. The mocking whispers echoed in the back of her mind, but now they were drowned out by the Admiral's words, by the crowd's applause, and most importantly, by the truth she carried in her heart. She was not just the girl they mocked, she was the reason they were all still standing. As she stepped back from the Admiral, the weight of the metal around her neck was heavier than metal. It was the weight of proof, of triumph over doubt, over scorn, over every whispered word meant to break her spirit. And in that moment, she knew the world had seen her for who she truly was. Not just a soldier, not just a daughter, but a savior. The Admiral's final words lingered in the air, a powerful echo that refused to be ignored. We were saved because of her. And in that truth, Lila found the strength to forgive the silence, to rise above the disdain, and to claim her place, not just on that stage, but in history itself. The mocking glances. Lila stood on the stage, the weight of her uniform settling around her like armor, both literal and invisible. Her eyes swept across the crowd, searching for familiar faces. Then, there they were, her family, sitting in the front row. Their gazes were sharp, cold, and filled with disbelief. Disdain curled in their eyes. A silent chorus of judgment that echoed louder than the applause still ringing in the hall. She felt a familiar sting, a rush of memories flooding back. They mocked me, she thought. They always did. She remembered the nights as a child, sitting at the dinner table, her dreams laid bare like an open map. You want to be in the military. That's not for girls, her brother sneered once. Her mother shook her head, eyes heavy with disappointment. Her father's silence spoke volumes. Never a word of encouragement, only a quiet withdrawal as if her ambition was a burden he wished to ignore. You'll never make it, they said. You don't belong there. Those words, spoken so often, had shaped her for years. But here she was, standing tall in her uniform, every medal and badge a testament to the battles she had fought, both outside and within. The applause swelled again, but beneath that sound she could feel the tension thickening, like a storm gathering just beyond the horizon. The murmurs, the sideways glances, the whispers barely caught by the edges of her hearing, they all carried the same message. Who does she think she is? But Lila refused to let their mockery define her. She squared her shoulders and lifted her chin, drawing in a steady breath. This was her moment. Not just for herself, but for every person who had been doubted, dismissed, or told they were less because of who they were or where they came from. Then the Admiral stepped forward, his voice cutting through the charged air with calm authority. Today we honor courage. Not just the courage found in battle, but the courage it takes to stand firm when the world tells you to fall. It is the courage of resilience that saves us all. Lila felt a swell of something fierce and profound rise within her. The Admiral's words weren't just about the mission or the medals. They were about the journey she had endured, about the nights she stayed up training when her family mocked her, about the moments she stood alone, carrying a weight no one else seemed to see. The Admiral paused, then said words that would forever change the room's energy. We were saved because of her. A hush fell over the crowd, eyes widened, jaws slackened. Every head turned toward Lila, and for the first time, the mocking glances transformed into something else. Respect, recognition, honor. She had been the one who led the critical operation, the one who risked everything to save lives when the rest of the fleet was trapped. The one who refused to back down, even when the odds were stacked impossibly high. The one who proved that courage isn't measured by the approval of others, but by the strength to face the impossible anyway. The silence held for a beat longer, then applause erupted. Not polite, not hesitant, but real, genuine. It washed over her, a wave of validation and vindication. Lila looked back at her family. Their faces were unreadable now. Shock, maybe even a flicker of shame. But she didn't seek their forgiveness or their praise. She knew her worth had never depended on their acceptance. She was a soldier, a leader, a survivor. And she was standing there, not because she had been chosen, but because she had chosen herself. The Admiral's voice continued, steady and sure. Let this moment remind us all The measure of a hero is not in the ease of their path, but in their resolve to keep moving forward when the world doubts them. Lila embodies that spirit. Her story is not just her own. It belongs to every person who has ever been told no, every dream dismissed, every door slammed shut. Lila felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes but held them back. This was more than a victory. It was a reckoning. She was not invisible. She was not insignificant. She was a beacon. As the ceremony drew to a close, the crowd stood, the applause echoing like thunder. Lila stepped down from the stage, her heart pounding with the weight of what had been said, and what it meant. In that moment, she realized she carried something far greater than medals or titles. She carried hope. For herself and for all those who had been mocked, doubted, or overlooked. Because sometimes, the greatest acts of bravery come not from the battlefield, but from standing tall in the face of scorn, and proving that courage can change everything. They mocked me at the ceremony, she thought, but I was the one who saved them all. The Admiral's speech. The room fell quiet as the Admiral stepped forward, his gaze sweeping over the crowd. Everyone waited, some still murmuring, others watching with half-formed judgments, but now, all attention was fixed on him. He cleared his throat, then began to speak. There was a mission, he said slowly, one that many believed would end in disaster, a mission where failure was not an option, and the stakes were nothing less than life and death. He paused, his eyes locking onto Lila's in the audience. She sat rigid in her uniform, heart pounding like a drum inside her chest, unsure of what he would say next, but desperate to hear it. We were deep in hostile territory, the Admiral continued. Our team had been sent to secure a critical communication outpost. Intelligence was sketchy and the terrain was brutal, dense, unfamiliar, and fraught with dangers we couldn't have anticipated. The enemy was watching, waiting for us to slip. A ripple of tension swept through the listeners. The Admiral's voice was steady but carried the weight of the moment, the gravity of what had happened. Early on, everything that could go wrong did. Our convoy was ambushed. Explosions shattered the night, cutting communication lines and sending our soldiers scattering for cover. The enemy was relentless, and chaos threatened to overwhelm us. Lila's breath caught. She remembered that night, the cold sweat, the sharp sounds, the desperate scramble to stay alive. But she had kept her wits. That night, her training had become instinct. Amid the confusion, the Admiral went on, it was Lila who took command. Alone, she assessed the situation faster than anyone else could. With radio equipment damaged, she rigged an improvised signal to call for support. She identified the safest path through the ambush, leading her team away from certain death. The audience leaned in, some with wide eyes, others with clenched fists. They hadn't heard this story before. They had only seen Lila in that uniform, maybe doubting her, questioning her place here. But now, the truth unfolded, a testament to courage and quick thinking. She moved with precision under fire, the Admiral said. Her calm in the storm was a beacon. It gave the men hope when all seemed lost. Her decisions saved lives that night, lives that otherwise would have been lost in the darkness. Lila's heart surged. The words were more than praise. They were healing. Each sentence stitched together the torn pieces of her confidence. Her family's laughter, the whispered doubts, the sideways glances, they all faded beneath this moment of recognition. The Admiral's voice grew firmer, more commanding. We were trapped, outnumbered, and on the brink of defeat. But because of her, because of Lila's unwavering resolve and brilliance, we survived. We completed our mission. We returned home. A hush fell over the crowd. The weight of the story hung between them, undeniable and profound. Then, the Admiral stepped closer to Lila, his tone sincere and strong. We were saved because of her. The words echoed through the hall, resonating with power. They shattered the skepticism that had followed her, replacing it with awe and respect. For a moment, the room held its breath. Then, as if unleashed, the applause erupted, thunderous, heartfelt, impossible to ignore. Lila sat frozen, tears prickling at the corners of her eyes. The sound washed over her like a wave, sweeping away the years of ridicule and doubt. She felt seen, valued, finally, truly recognized. the Admiral continued, nodding toward her. This young woman embodies everything we fight for: bravery, intelligence, leadership. In her, we see the future of our forces. Let her story be a reminder. Never underestimate the power of courage and quick thinking. The crowd rose to their feet, their cheers filling the space with energy and pride. Faces that had once been skeptical now looked at her with newfound admiration. Lila's chest swelled with a fierce, quiet pride. This wasn't just about the mission anymore. It was about reclaiming her story, rewriting the narrative that others had tried to control. As the applause died down, the Admiral stepped back and gave a final nod. "Thank you, Lila, for saving us all." She stood, straightening her uniform, feeling the weight of the moment settle over her like a mantle. The past mockery, the doubts, they no longer defined her. Tonight, she was a hero. And this was just the beginning. The shift in perception. The applause swelled like a tide, filling the vast hall with a sound so powerful it seemed to shake the very air. Lila stood still, the echo of clapping hands washing over her, each clap a beat marking a new rhythm in her life. For years, she had been the target of sneers, whispers, and dismissive glances. Yet now, in this moment, the crowd's energy shifted, charged with respect, admiration, and something that felt like awe. She let the sounds settle around her, breathing deeply, letting the gravity of what had just been said sink in. The Admiral's words still rang clear. "We were saved because of her." Those 6 words cracked open a door to a place she had longed to enter, but had been locked out of for so long. The sea of faces before her no longer whispered doubt or scorn. Instead, they looked at her as a soldier, as a comrade, as a hero. Soldiers began to line up along the aisles, their hands rising in crisp salutes. Each salute was a silent acknowledgement of her bravery, a wordless testament to battles fought and won. It was the first time Lila felt the weight of belonging settle on her shoulders, not as a burden, but as a mantle. She caught the eyes of a few young recruits, their expressions bright with newfound hope. They saw her not as an outsider, but as a beacon. This was the recognition she had fought for, the proof that her perseverance had meaning beyond the jeers and doubters. Yet, amid the roar of acceptance, her family sat frozen, caught off guard. Their faces were a mirror of disbelief and confusion. She saw the way they exchanged glances, silent conversations passing between them, like ripples on a still pond. The woman who had once been dismissed by them as reckless, naive, or too stubborn to fit in, was now the very reason their unit had survived. There was a bittersweet ache in that realization. Lila knew that their understanding might never come. Not fully, not in the way she had hoped. Their love was tangled with expectations and old fears, and this moment of victory was tangled with the distance that had grown between them. They cheered politely, yes, but the warmth she felt from the crowd was missing in their eyes. Still, she allowed herself a small, quiet smile. It was a smile born from the knowledge that she had proven herself, not just to her family, but to everyone who had ever doubted her. That smile was a seed of strength, planted deep within her. A commander stepped forward, his voice steady and full of respect. "Lila, your courage under fire turned the tide. You faced every challenge with unwavering resolve, and because of you, many lives were saved. Today we honor not just your actions, but the spirit that carried you through." The crowd responded with renewed applause, louder now, more fervent. Lila's heart pounded, each beat a drum of validation. The sting of past mockery faded, replaced by a powerful current of pride. Soldiers who had once ignored her now approached, clapping her on the back, offering firm handshakes and nods of approval. Some spoke softly, words of encouragement and thanks that made the air feel electric with possibility. In that moment, she was no longer the girl who had been laughed at, sidelined, or underestimated. She was a symbol of resilience, a reminder that strength often comes from the places where others refuse to look. Her uniform felt different now, heavier with honor, lighter with the relief of acceptance. It was a shield and a banner all at once. As the ceremony continued, Lila's eyes scanned the crowd again, this time seeking out faces she recognized. Friends who had held her up in quiet moments, mentors who had believed before anyone else did. Their smiles reassured her, telling her she was not alone. Her family's expressions softened just a fraction, a subtle shift that spoke of beginnings rather than endings. Though they might never fully grasp her journey, perhaps they were starting to see the woman she had become. The Admiral's words echoed in her mind once more. We were saved because of her. Those words were more than praise. They were a declaration of truth, a rewriting of a story that had once been written without her. Lila took a breath and lifted her chin, standing taller than she ever had. The room was no longer a place of judgment, but a sanctuary of respect. She belonged here. She had earned it. And in that belonging, she found a new kind of strength, a strength that came not from proving others wrong, but from proving to herself that she was capable of greatness. The applause continued, a wave that carried her forward into a future defined not by others' doubts, but by her own unbreakable will. She allowed herself a final hopeful smile. This was only the beginning. Facing her family. The applause fades. The crowd begins to disperse, voices mingling with the distant hum of conversation and footsteps. Lila steps down from the stage, her uniform crisp, her medals gleaming under the soft lights. She moves toward her family, who stand clustered near the back of the room. Their faces are unreadable at first. Pride flickers in their eyes, but so does confusion, maybe even a hint of disbelief. Her mother is the first to break the silence, her voice hesitant, almost fragile. You did well, Lila, really well. But she trails off, as if weighing the right words carefully, unsure if they will comfort or wound. Lila doesn't let the pause linger. She steps closer, her gaze steady and unwavering. But what? She asks quietly, yet with unmistakable strength. What are you trying to say? Her mother shifts uncomfortably, glancing at her husband, who remains silent. You know, we didn't always understand your choices, the way you pushed yourself so hard, the risks you took. Some of us thought it was reckless. Lila feels the words hit her, sharp but familiar. She remembers the whispered doubts, the sideways glances, the laughter that she caught but never confronted, especially that night at the ceremony, when some relatives had muttered, "She's just lucky," or "too young to be taken seriously." She takes a breath, steadying herself. I know you mocked me. At the ceremony, some of you laughed behind my back. You said I was chasing a dream that didn't belong to me, that I was foolish, maybe even dangerous. Her voice grows firmer, fueled by the memory of their disbelief. But every word of mockery, every doubtful glance only made me fight harder. Her mother's eyes widen, caught off guard by the raw honesty. I didn't do this to prove you wrong, Lila continues. I did it because I believed, because I knew that this was my path. I knew that even if you couldn't see it, even if you were afraid for me, I had the right to pursue my dreams, to serve, to protect, to be more than what anyone expected. There's a heavy silence that follows, charged and unyielding. Her father, who has been quiet all this while, shifts his weight and finally speaks. His voice is low, steady, and carries an unexpected warmth. You were right to follow your path, Lila. We may not have understood, but we see you now. We see what you've done. Lila's breath catches. This is new, the support she longed for, spoken aloud. It wasn't easy, she says softly, and I won't pretend it was. I faced doubts, not just from others, but from my own family. But standing here today, knowing that the Admiral said, we were saved because of her, makes it all worthwhile. Her mother nods slowly, the tension easing from her shoulders. We were scared, she admits, not because we didn't believe in you, but because we feared losing you. But today, I'm proud of the woman you've become. Lila steps forward, eyes locked with her father's. I ask, not just for pride, but for respect. Respect for the choices I've made, the sacrifices I've endured, and the battles I've fought. This isn't just an award, it's a testament to what I'm capable of. And I deserve to be seen for that. Her father nods again, more firmly this time. You have it. You have our respect, and more importantly, our love. In that moment, something shifts. The walls built over years of misunderstanding begin to crumble. The mockery, the doubts, they don't disappear overnight, but they lose their power. Lila feels it, a current of change threading through her family, a new chapter unfolding. Her mother reaches out, hesitating, then pulls Lila into an embrace. "We were wrong to doubt you," she whispers. "Thank you for showing us the truth." Lila breathes it in, the warmth, the acceptance. She realizes this moment is as meaningful as the ceremony itself. The award acknowledged her bravery and skill, but this confrontation, this reckoning with her family, gives her something deeper: belonging. "I'm not just the girl you thought I was," Lila says, voice steady and proud. "I'm the woman who saved lives, the soldier who stood her ground, and I'm finally ready to stand with you, whole and unafraid." Her family steps back, their faces transformed, no longer masks of uncertainty, but reflections of pride and newfound respect. The Admiral's words echo in her mind. We were saved because of her, not just by her actions on the battlefield, but by the courage to face those who doubted her and to demand the respect she earned. Lila smiles, feeling stronger, freer. The journey ahead is still long, but this moment, this victory, belongs to her, and to them all. A soldier's bond. The applause had barely faded when Lila felt a tap on her shoulder. She turned, startled, to see a small group of soldiers approaching her, their faces worn but warm with genuine smiles. "Hey, Lila," one said, his voice steady but filled with something like awe. "That was incredible back there." She blinked, unsure. After all, just hours before, many had doubted her. They'd whispered behind her back, dismissed her. But now, here they were, offering congratulations, not just out of duty, but from respect. Another stepped forward, a woman with a scar running down her cheek. "You know," she began, "I used to think my own struggles made me weak. But watching you today, you showed me what strength really looks like." Lila's lips curved into a tentative smile. She listened as the stories unfolded around her, tales of hardship, sacrifice, and tiny victories won in the shadows. Each voice carried a weight, a history. A soldier who had lost a brother in the field. Another who fought through injury to return to duty. They spoke not to boast, but to connect, to share the invisible scars that no uniform could hide. As they talked, laughter bubbled up spontaneously. Memories of grueling training exercises, unexpected mishaps, and moments when they'd thought about giving up. But they hadn't. They'd pushed through, together. And now, in this moment, Lila felt something she hadn't known she was missing, a sense of belonging. For the first time in a long while, the heavy weight pressing on her chest began to lift. The bitterness of earlier disdain, her family's harsh words, their disbelief, felt distant, almost unreal. Here, among these warriors, she found acceptance. Not because she was perfect, but because she was real. Because she'd fought and survived, just like them. One of the men chuckled, shaking his head. "Remember that time during training when the comms went down, and we all thought we were doomed? You took charge, kept us calm. If it weren't for you, that day would have ended very differently." Lila's heart quickened. She had almost forgotten that day. The day she'd stepped up despite her fears, despite the sneers. It was a turning point, but not just for her. For all of them. "Yeah," another chimed in, "you didn't just save us then, you saved us today." When the Admiral said we were saved because of her, he wasn't just talking about tactics or bravery, he was talking about hope. About what it means to stand tall when the world expects you to fall. The group nodded in agreement, their eyes shining with a shared understanding. In their presence, Lila felt her confidence swell. Not the fragile kind that wavers with every doubt, but a steady flame built on mutual respect and hard-earned resilience. One of the women, voice soft but firm, said, "We're not just comrades, we're a family. And families don't judge based on past mistakes or rumors. We lift each other up." Lila took a deep breath. The knots of anxiety that had tied her down for years began to unravel. She realized this bond was something stronger than blood or history. It was forged in fire, through trials faced side by side and the unspoken promise that none of them would ever face the next battle alone. As they continued to share their stories, a warmth spread through her, like the first rays of dawn after a long, cold night. The laughter grew louder, the stories more animated. They teased each other about who had the worst drill sergeant, who had tripped over their own gear, who had cried in the barracks late at night. These moments of lightness were a balm. They reminded Lila that strength wasn't just in heroic deeds or medals. It was in the shared humanity, the understanding that everyone carried burdens, even if they hid them well. "I never thought I'd find a place like this," Lila admitted quietly, almost to herself. "A place where I belong." One of the soldiers reached out, clasping her hand firmly. "You belong here, with us. We've all faced our own battles, and now we face the future together." The weight on her shoulders felt lighter still. She could almost hear the whisper of her own heart, steady and sure. The ridicule from the ceremony, the mockery that had stung so deeply, was no longer the defining voice. Instead, this new family's acceptance echoed louder. Lila straightened her posture, the uniform suddenly feeling less like a suit of armor she had to prove herself in, and more like a banner, a symbol of resilience shared, of victories earned and battles yet to come. As the group began to disperse, promising to meet again for training and stories and shared coffee breaks, Lila stood alone for a moment. The sun warmed her face, but it was the warmth inside, born of connection and acceptance, that truly comforted her. She was no longer the girl who had been mocked. She was a soldier, a comrade, a sister in arms, and together they had all been saved by the strength of one, by her. With a quiet smile, Lila whispered to herself, "This is only the beginning. Reflection and growth. The night is quiet now. The world feels still, save for the soft whisper of the wind brushing against the leaves. I stand alone, beneath a canopy of stars, each one like a distant beacon, silent witnesses to the journey that brought me here. In this vast darkness, I find a strange kind of peace. I think back to the ceremony, how they laughed, the sneers, the whispers, the doubt that hung heavy in the air, as if I were nothing more than a joke. They mocked me openly, as if my presence was an error, a disruption to the order they thought they controlled. Their eyes told stories of disbelief, of resentment. I was the outsider, the anomaly, the girl who didn't fit their mold. But then, the Admiral spoke, his voice cut through the murmurs, steady and unwavering. "We were saved because of her." Those words changed everything. They echoed in the hall, reverberating in the silence that followed. For a moment, all eyes turned to me, not with scorn, but with respect, with recognition. It's strange how a single moment can shift the course of a person's life. The laughter didn't disappear entirely, but it lost its power. The shadows that once threatened to drown me in doubt began to recede. I wasn't always certain I could endure the weight of their judgment. There were nights filled with frustration and tears, wondering if I was strong enough to carry the burden of expectations and the sting of rejection. I remember the long hours of training, the relentless drills that pushed me to the edge of exhaustion. I remember the whispered doubts from those closest to me, the questions I never dared to voice aloud. Am I really cut out for this? Yet, every challenge shaped me. Every harsh word, every dismissive glance, was like a chisel, carving away the uncertainty to reveal something stronger beneath. I learned to stand taller, speak clearer, and fight harder, not just for myself, but for those who believed in what I represented, even when they were outnumbered. The night sky above mirrors those thoughts, endless, uncharted, full of possibilities I'm only beginning to understand. Just as the stars have burned for millennia despite the darkness around them, I too have found a light within. It flickers, yes, but it burns with purpose. I know now that my family may never fully grasp the path I've chosen. Their silence is not a rejection, but a reflection of their own fears and misunderstandings. They see the uniform, the medals, the discipline, but not the battles fought in shadows, the quiet victories that no one applauds. And that's okay. I don't need their approval to know the truth of who I am. This journey is mine alone, forged in struggle, tempered by triumph. Every step forward has been a declaration. I am here, I belong, I matter. I remember the moment the Admiral's words lifted me out of the storm. It wasn't just about recognition. It was about validation, the kind that comes from those who understand sacrifice, who see beyond the surface to the heart of the fight. To hear that I was the reason we survived was more than an honor. It was a call to keep going, to push past the doubts, the mockery, the fear. And I will. Because now I stand not as the girl they mocked, but as a soldier who made a difference. A leader who earned her place through grit and determination. A woman who turned the pain of rejection into the fuel for her purpose. Peace isn't found in the absence of struggle, but in the acceptance of it. I carry the scars, both visible and invisible, as badges of resilience. I embrace the lessons they taught me and the strength they uncovered. The stars above remind me that the future is wide open, each one a possibility, a chance to write the next chapter on my own terms. The path ahead may be uncertain, but it is mine to forge. I am ready. To keep fighting, to keep leading. To keep proving that the girl they once mocked is the reason we stand strong today. And that knowledge, that quiet, powerful truth, gives me all the strength I need to face whatever comes next. Because in the end, it's not about their doubts or their laughter. It's about the difference I've made, the lives saved, the battles won. And that is something no one can take away. The unexpected call. The ceremony had ended, and the crowd was beginning to disperse. Lila stood still for a moment, the weight of the Admiral's words still echoing in her mind. We were saved because of her. Those words had cut through the mocking laughter and whispered doubts that had followed her like shadows all day. She adjusted her uniform, the fabric feeling heavier now, not with discomfort, but with the burden of expectation. Her heart pounded, a mixture of pride and disbelief. They had mocked her, yes. They had doubted her abilities, whispered behind her back, and dismissed her as the girl who didn't belong. Yet here she was, standing tall, because someone powerful had seen her worth. As she turned toward the exit, her phone buzzed sharply in her pocket. She pulled it out with trembling hands. The screen showed an unfamiliar number, but it was flagged as coming from the Admiral's office. Her breath caught. Could it be? Did they really want to talk to her again? She answered, voice steady but curious. Lila speaking. There was a pause on the other end, then a clear, professional tone. Lieutenant Lila, this is Commander Harris from Admiral Morgan's office. The Admiral would like to speak with you about a potential promotion and a new assignment. Would you be available to meet tomorrow morning? Quote. The words hit her like a wave. A promotion? A new assignment? This was no small matter. This was the kind of opportunity that could change everything. Solidify her place in the military. Validate every struggle, every sleepless night, every whispered insult she had endured. But with it came uncertainty, new challenges, new expectations. Her mind raced. What would this assignment entail? Would she be ready? Could she prove herself once more? She took a deep breath, steadying herself. She thought back to the day she enlisted, full of hope but uncertain of her place. She remembered the skepticism in the eyes of her peers, the quiet resistance she faced. And yet here she was. She had fought hard. She had saved lives. She had earned her place. I'll be there, she said firmly. The line went silent for a moment, then Commander Harris replied, Excellent. The Admiral is looking forward to speaking with you. Have a good evening, Lieutenant. Lila ended the call and pocketed her phone. She stood still, feeling a strange calmness wash over her. This was a turning point, a moment she could not afford to waste. She thought again about the ceremony. The sneers, the mocking glances, the doubt, and then the Admiral's words, spoken with undeniable conviction. We were saved because of her. That phrase had shattered the walls built by her critics. It was a shield and a sword all at once. She realized now that the ceremony was never really about public approval. It was about her own journey, how far she had come, how many battles she had fought, both external and within herself. Her reflection in the mirror came to mind. A young woman in uniform, eyes bright with determination, shoulders squared with purpose. She was no longer the girl who had walked into the military uncertain and unseen. She was a force, ready to face whatever came next. Her fingers curled into fists at her sides. This promotion could be the chance to prove that she was more than the sum of their doubts, that her contributions mattered, that she belonged. She thought about the new assignment. It would come with challenges, new terrain, new missions, new teammates. But she was ready. She had to be. The sound of the hall outside stirred her awareness. People were still lingering, some offering hesitant smiles, others avoiding her gaze. The mockery was fading, replaced by a cautious respect. Yet she knew true respect was earned in the field, not in the ceremony hall. She adjusted her cap, the insignia gleaming in the dim light, a symbol of everything she had earned and everything she was about to undertake. This call was more than a simple meeting. It was an invitation to step fully into her destiny. She allowed herself a brief smile. The road ahead would not be easy, but it was hers to walk. With renewed determination, she turned toward the exit. Tomorrow, she would face the Admiral again, not as the girl they mocked, but as the officer who saved them all. And she would make sure they never forgot it. Preparing for change. In the quiet hours after the ceremony, Lila sat alone in her quarters, the echoes of laughter still ringing in her ears. They had mocked her, whispered doubts, sideways glances, dismissive smirks. She could feel the weight of their disbelief pressing down, heavier than the uniform she wore. But then, the Admiral's words had cut through it all like a blade of truth. "We were saved because of her." Those words replayed in her mind, steady and sure, over and over. She wasn't just the subject of ridicule anymore. She was the reason they had survived. Tonight, she allowed herself a moment to breathe. Tomorrow, she would meet the Admiral. This meeting was more than a formality. It was a chance to show that the woman they laughed at had a vision, a plan for the future of their forces. A future where strength wasn't measured by tradition alone, but by courage, innovation, and resilience. Lila reached for a worn notebook on the desk, its pages filled with reports, mission logs, and personal notes. She flipped through them slowly, tracing the path she had carved. Each entry was a milestone. Each success, a silent rebuttal to those who doubted her. The successful reconnaissance mission that uncovered the enemy's weak point. The improvised defense strategy that saved her unit during the last skirmish. The countless hours spent training, learning, pushing herself beyond limits no one thought she could reach. She read her own words aloud, steadying her voice. "I have learned that leadership is not about command alone. It is about trust, about listening, about seeing beyond what is visible." Her fingers drifted to a fresh sheet of paper, where she had sketched out ideas for better communication systems and improved tactical training. Her vision was clear, a military transformed, prepared for threats not just of today but those lurking on the horizon. But doubt crept in like a shadow. "Do they really believe I can lead?" she wondered. "Or is this just a fleeting moment of mercy?" The laughter from the ceremony was a cold reminder that acceptance was fragile. She closed her eyes, letting those doubts settle before pushing them away. She thought of the soldiers who had stood by her, those who saw her not as a joke, but as a comrade. Their quiet nods, their steady hands in battle, their unwavering faith in her decisions. They were her anchor. Their belief fueled her resolve. Then the Admiral's voice echoed again, firm and unwavering. "We were saved because of her. Not in spite of her, but because of her." Lila rose and moved to the mirror, hanging on the wall. The reflection staring back was a young woman in her mid-20s, clad in the crisp lines of a military uniform. Her eyes held a fire that no mockery could extinguish. She squared her shoulders and took a deep breath. "This is who I am," she said softly. "This is what I fight for." She began practicing her speech, her voice gaining strength with each repetition. She spoke of unity, of innovation, of courage under fire. She spoke of a future where every soldier, regardless of background or gender, could stand proud and contribute to the mission. "My goal," she rehearsed, "is to build a force that is adaptable, intelligent, and unbreakable, one that learns from its past but never fears the future. Together, we can ensure the safety of our people with honor and strength." The words felt true. They weren't just lines for the Admiral. They were a promise to herself and to every soldier who believed in her. She paused, looking again into her own eyes. "You've earned this. You belong here." The days passed with a quiet intensity. Each morning she reviewed her notes, Each evening she stood before the mirror, refining her message. The tension built, a knot tightening in her chest as the meeting grew nearer, but with it came clarity. This was not just a test of her abilities, it was a declaration. A moment to claim her place, not just in the military but in history. When the knock came at her door, signaling the arrival of the Admiral's aide, Lila felt a calm settle over her. She straightened her uniform one last time and met her reflection with a steady nod. No longer the subject of mockery, no longer a shadow in the ranks. She was the reason they had survived. And now, she was ready to lead. The Admiral's office awaited, and so did her future. The meeting. The day of the meeting arrives. Lila stands before the Admiral's office, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest. The weight of what's at stake presses on her shoulders. She straightens her uniform, breathes deeply, and steps inside. The room is a shrine to a lifetime of service. Walls lined with medals, plaques, and photographs, capturing moments of valor and strategy. Each accolade tells a story of sacrifice and leadership. Yet today, the story about to unfold belongs to Lila. The Admiral looks up from his desk, eyes sharp but welcoming. He gestures for her to sit. The silence stretches for a heartbeat, then he breaks it. "I've been following your progress closely," he begins, voice steady and deliberate. "Not just the numbers or the reports, but the way you carry yourself under pressure. I won't lie. When I first heard the murmurs at the ceremony, I admit I was skeptical. The whispers, the doubts. I thought maybe you'd falter like so many before you." Lila's fingers tighten in her lap, but her gaze remains steady. She remembers those moments, the sneers, the sideways glances, the dismissive laughter. They thought she was an easy target, a symbol to mock. "But then," the Admiral continues, "I saw what you did, how you took command when everything was falling apart, how you turned a near disaster into a victory. We were saved because of her," he says, voice rising with conviction, "because of you." Lila's breath catches. The words echo in the space between them. Those words, spoken by the highest-ranking officer in the fleet, carry the weight of truth and respect. She had been invisible once, mocked, underestimated, but now she was seen. "I want to hear your side," the Admiral says, leaning back. "Tell me about the journey that brought you here. What did you face? What did you learn?" Lila folds her hands, steady now, ready to share the story she's carried alone for so long. "It wasn't easy," she begins. "From the moment I stepped into the academy, I was the subject of jokes and low expectations. I was told I didn't have what it takes. At the ceremony, when they mocked me, it wasn't just words. It was a challenge. To prove them wrong, I had to push harder than anyone else. I learned to listen beyond the noise, to focus on what mattered." She pauses, gathering strength from the memory. "When the crisis hit, I saw an opportunity to lead, not because I wanted recognition, but because I knew lives depended on it. I made decisions that weren't popular at first, but they kept us alive." The Admiral nods slowly, absorbing every word. That kind of courage, quiet, relentless. It's rare. It's what leadership demands. Not just the ability to command, but the strength to endure doubt and keep moving forward. He stands and walks over to a framed photo on the wall. It shows a younger version of himself, standing beside a battle-scarred ship. "I want to tell you a story," he says, voice softer now. "Early in my career, I faced a mission that almost cost me everything. My team questioned my choices. I doubted myself. But I learned that resilience isn't just about bouncing back. It's about standing firm when the world expects you to fall." He turns back to her, eyes steady. "That lesson saved my life, and it's what will guide you through the challenges ahead." Lila feels the weight of his words settle deep within her. This moment, this conversation, it's more than a meeting. It's a passing of the torch. The Admiral returns to his desk and slides a folder across to her. "I'm offering you a promotion. It comes with greater responsibilities, but I believe you're ready. This is your turning point." Her fingers brush the edge of the folder, heart swelling with a mix of excitement and nerves. She knows this path won't be easy. The road ahead is filled with expectations, scrutiny, and the pressure to prove herself again and again. But she's ready. "Thank you, sir," she says, voice steady. "I won't let you down." The Admiral smiles. A rare, genuine smile. "I know you won't. Remember, leadership isn't about never failing, it's about rising every time you do. We were saved because of you, Lila. Never forget that." As she leaves the office, the echoes of doubt from the ceremony feel distant now. She walks forward with purpose, embracing the challenge and the promise of what's to come. This is just the beginning. A new chapter. Stepping out of the meeting room, Lila's chest swelled with a quiet pride. The weight of the new insignia on her uniform felt heavier than any before, not because of its physical mass, but because of what it represented. This promotion wasn't just a title or a step up the ladder. It was a testament to every early morning, every late night, every moment when she refused to give up. For years, she had been the subject of sneers and whispers. Back home, her family had dismissed her dreams, mocking her choice to serve. At the ceremony, some had barely hidden their disbelief. They saw a girl, young, untested, and not quite fitting their idea of what a soldier should be. But then came the Admiral's words, sharp and clear. "We were saved because of her." Those words had cut through the noise like a beacon, shining a light on her truth. Lila felt the sting of those earlier doubts fade, replaced by something far stronger. Respect, slowly earned, but undeniable. It wasn't the kind of respect that arrived overnight, nor was it loud or boastful. It was subtle, the kind that grew in the glances of her fellow soldiers, in their nods of approval, in their readiness to stand beside her. She thought back to the countless hours in the training grounds, the relentless drills, the moments when her body screamed to stop but her mind pushed on. Every drop of sweat had carried her closer to this moment. The promotion was her proof that hard work and determination could rewrite a story. Lila's eyes swept over the faces around her, her comrades, her team. They were there, a silent army of support, ready to follow her lead. With them, she wasn't just a girl who had been mocked. She was a leader, a symbol of resilience. They had seen what she was capable of, and their trust was a gift she would never take for granted. Gratitude welled up inside her, quiet but fierce. Gratitude for the chance to prove herself, for the battles fought and won, for the lessons learned in every failure. This moment was not an end but a beginning. A new chapter she was ready to write with courage and conviction. As she stood tall in her uniform, Lila knew the journey ahead would test her in ways she hadn't yet imagined. But she was no longer the girl who had been mocked at the ceremony. She was a soldier, a leader, and someone who had earned her place through sheer grit. The road wasn't easy, and it wouldn't be, but for the first time, Lila felt truly ready. Ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, to lead with strength and heart, and to continue proving that she was more than what anyone had ever doubted. This was her moment, and she would carry it with her, always. Embracing the future. The wind carries a quiet hum across the open field where they stand. Lila and the soldiers who have fought alongside her. Their silhouettes stretch long as the sun dips low, painting the horizon in deep golds and soft purples. This is no ordinary moment. It is the fragile, powerful cusp of what comes next. She feels the weight of the uniform on her shoulders, not just fabric and metals, but the stories stitched into every seam. Stories of doubt, of whispered sneers when she first arrived. They mocked her, they doubted her. At the ceremony, they laughed. They whispered behind her back, calling her a mistake, a distraction, a girl who couldn't possibly carry the burden of command. But now, those voices are distant echoes, overpowered by something far louder. The Admiral's words still reverberate in her mind. We were saved because of her. 3 simple words, but they carry the force of 1,000 battles won. They carry the affirmation she never sought, but always needed. Not just from the Admiral, her leader, her judge, but from every soldier who stood with her through the darkest nights and the fiercest storms. She looks around at the faces beside her, faces once filled with skepticism, now softened with respect. The shared struggles have forged bonds deeper than training manuals or orders from above. These are bonds of trust, earned in the heat of crisis and the cold of uncertainty. Lila's heart swells with something she barely dared to hope for: belonging. She recalls the first days, the isolation, the whispered doubts, the weight of proving herself over and over. How every mistake felt like a spotlight on her failure. How every glance carried the question, how did she get here? But she pushed forward. She trained harder. She listened more. She learned to see not just with her eyes, but with her instincts, her heart. And then came the moment that changed everything. The mission that nearly broke them all. When the enemy's plan unfolded with terrifying precision, threatening to tear through their defenses. When all seemed lost and the world held its breath. It was Lila who saw the flaw, the hidden weakness in the enemy's armor. It was Lila who devised the counterstrike, not from arrogance but from a place of quiet certainty. The plan was risky, unorthodox. Many questioned it, but the Admiral trusted her. The team followed her. And they prevailed. The memory is sharp and vivid. The flash of explosions, the shouted orders, the surge of adrenaline as they turned the tide. The moment when victory was snatched from the jaws of defeat. When the impossible became possible. And now, standing here, the sun casting its warm glow across the ranks, Lila feels the full circle of her journey. From the girl mocked and underestimated to the soldier who saved them all. The horizon stretches endlessly before them, unknown, challenging, full of promise and peril. She knows there will be more battles, more doubts to overcome. The road ahead is not easy. But she is ready. Because she is not the same person who first stepped into this uniform. She is stronger, sharper, resilient. She thinks of her family, the quiet pride in their eyes now replacing the skepticism of before. She thinks of the countless hours spent training, the sacrifices made in silence, the friendships forged in fire. And most of all, she thinks of what she has become. Her hand rises slowly, a salute carried on the wind. It is a pledge to her duty, to her comrades, and most importantly, to herself. A promise that she will continue to fight, to lead, to protect. This is more than a gesture. It is the birth of a legacy. A legacy born from the ashes of mockery and doubt. A legacy that will inspire those who come after her. That says, without words, that courage and determination can rewrite any story. As the sun slips below the horizon, the glow lingers on their faces, soft, hopeful. And in that light, Lila sees not just the end of a day, but the beginning of everything yet to come. She breathes in the moment, the camaraderie, the strength, the future. And she steps forward, ready. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.